Welcome to Why Medics Matter. We're going to talk about something that doesn't really get much spotlight, but it's probably one of the most important skills as a doctor or any healthcare professional, and that is Amie. We're going to talk about influence and negotiation.
So when you say those two words, I get a little bit like, oh God, I don't know how to influence. And well, maybe influence a little bit more, but negotiation is something that I think it's a skill that we can learn. I think some people are better at it than others.
But yes.
But what would be...
We've met them.
Yes. What would be really helpful is to really have a think about, for example, if I'm at work and I want to introduce something new, or I'm trying to negotiate my rota, my job plan, anything really, how can I do it? How can our listeners take away some skills from this episode that's going to help them go, do you know what? I can do this.
Yeah. I think we don't teach this, do we? We teach technical skills in medicine. We take, the craft. Oh, we do teach in some extent, because we do teach influence when we talk about how we work with patients.
Yeah.
And when we're working with patients, we often talk about understanding the patient's needs, understanding the shared interest, and sort of trying to be creative. When we negotiate with a colleague, if you can negotiate with a colleague, sometimes it's a one-way. It's not really a negotiation. It's an attack's probably a bit of a brutal word, but if we're doing genuine negotiation, we need to move away from bartering. Yeah. So sometimes people see negotiation as being in Marrakesh, wants to get a knockoff handbag, and you want $50 from me, and I only want to pay $10.
I've done that in Marrakesh.
Absolutely. And you both sort of go away with $25. You think, well, they moved and I moved. And that's all right in Marrakesh, because you're not going to negotiate with somebody that you're going to be working with. Okay.
Yeah.
So what makes it, and again, with patients is different. You'll have somebody for a while, but if you're negotiating with another member of the team on the same level, maybe negotiating upwards, maybe trying to negotiate with external stakeholders, you've got to maintain that relationship. You might win the battle, but you won't win the war if you destroy the relationship. So negotiating with key people or key stakeholders who you're to be working with is delicate. And I think what happens is sometimes I want to distinguish today really the difference between positional bargaining and what we teach and we talk about is the principle of negotiation. And that has come from Fisher and Uri's Getting to Yes book. So people want to read a bit more. Fantastic book. And let's have a bit of talk about the difference between those two. If I go back to your scenario, if I say you've got to negotiate now, what does that do to your sympathetic nervous system?
So I start to get anxious about it, because for me, negotiation equals confrontation.
And conflict.
And I think that's a very negative thing that's attached to negotiation. And maybe actually taking it back a few steps, and the start point of this is what do I want to get? What's my outcome? And then work back from that, rather than seeing it, oh gosh, I'm going to have to go and figure out now how I get this weekend off. Oh God, I really want this weekend off, and they're not going to give me this weekend off. So you automatically go into the negotiation thinking, well, I'm not going to get what I want anyway. Therefore, I'm already on the defensive.
And if I could take it even a step further back, you said what I want, and often we start from positions. What's my position, my needs, their needs? To a much more deeper question is why? Okay. Okay. So if we go back to the weekend off, why do you want that? Is that because you need time to do some sort of work? Is it time because you're spending with family? So whenever we negotiate, we're thinking, why? And I think if we move away from the what to the why, then you say, and then you start to understand, well, why do I want this? but why would the other person want this as well? So we start to move away from positions, and we can practice positions hard or soft. Okay. So if we practice soft positions, me and you negotiating, you and I are friends. We want to maintain friendship. We're going to be really soft on each other. We're going to just want to get agreement. We're not really going to be creative, and I'll yield to pressure because I want your approval. And there's a risk of being a soft negotiator, that if the other person isn't practicing soft, that you could be not assertive. Yeah, and we need to separate the difference between being assertive and aggressive. Okay, assertive in your negotiation is about being able to speak up for your needs, but also respecting the other person. So if I go back to the other side of positional bargain, which is hard, Amie, you and I, we're enemies. Okay, and you want to win, I want to win. I don't trust you, probably don't particularly like you, and I'm not going to disclose my bottom line. I'm going to pretend that's as far, $5 for the bag. At the most I'm ever going to pay is 10, and you're going to pay 20. Okay, and if you don't give it for me 10, I'm walking away. If you don't give me this weekend off, I'm quitting. You know what I mean? You start making quite harsh threats, and the relationship breaks down. So that's positional, okay?
And I've been in that situation. I've been in that exact situation, and walked away and gone, why did I do that? Because in the moment, that stress, that cortisol response makes you say and do things that aren't truly aligned with yourself, I think.
Yeah. And if you make those threats, you're going to have to follow them through at some point.
Could you imagine? I've got no job. Oops. Exactly.
That's another
you're
story.
Right. Yeah. It's sort of like what you do with children, isn't it? That type of negotiating with kids. Yeah.
Okay. So if I go to principled negotiation, okay, the principle is we're trying to get a wise, fair agreement based on the most important outcome. And we're trying to do it relatively efficiently whilst maintaining a relationship. Okay. And the bit I take when I teach supporting people in negotiations, I talk about a really important point to take away, which is shared interests. What are our shared interests? If we do not have shared interests, it's not really a negotiation, it's a beg. If there's no interest for you or whatever, it's a favor. Yeah.
Okay.
And I might be incredibly paid back. But if I want to get something, okay. So I'll tell you a real story. I have one of my colleagues who I know very well and very, very close to, who was in a mess with her job plan. She had a job which involved being a pediatrician, being the safeguarding lead, which is a statutory requirement, and also being a gastroenterology lead whilst working less than full time. Okay. Single-handed, a huge, and the responsibilities for those areas grew. And she was into probably the most challenging negotiation we all have, which is job planning. Okay. And for many years, she'd been working over a huge amount of unrecognized discretionary effort, which over time, as you know, starts to create resentment and frustration and risks of burnout. And she's a sort of colleague that never sat still. So we went for a coffee before a job plan. I said, like, can I take you to Costa? She goes, oh, this is nice. Costa's. I said, yes, it's been here for 10 years.
Yeah.
But you need to stop. And we talked about, I said to them, don't go in and saying, well, this is the number I want, and I want that bit shaved off there, and that bit is shaved off there. Got to flip it completely. Okay. We're going to talk about shared interests. So if you're going to speak to a clinical lead and a general manager, what's their interest? What do they need? They need an adequate safeguarding service. It's a statutory requirement, and it needs to be delivered to our standard. That's non-negotiable. That's what they need, okay? They also need somebody to be the lead liaison link with the regional gastroenterology service and be the focus point for our local kids in the service. And they need a pediatrician who's well at work, who's motivated and feeling valued, okay? And I said to my colleague, I said, if we do nothing, If we trim a little bit off here and a little bit off there, will we achieve those three things? And she went, no. Okay, so we went for options, said, what are the what do we need? We need good safeguarding, we need gastroenterology, we need a pediatrician who's happy and well. Okay, so what are the options? The options is maybe gastroenterology goes to somebody else and you focus on that, or vice versa, different options. And she went to that negotiation using that language. So it wasn't, I need this, you need to give me this sort of combatant and movement. It was saying, okay, guys, we have a service. This is what we need to do. How do we do it? We've got the resources. And they both went, actually, we can't, can we? So what happened is she got two new colleagues in the team at the end of that negotiation. They were always going to come anyway, because that needed to bolster the service. But actually, the shared interest was, we need to bolster safeguard and we need to bolster gastroenterology. So the two posts both had time in the job plan. So my colleague left with a better job plan, but had shared her weight of responsibility. And that's it. Probably one of the most powerful stories of the difference between interests. And if I was negotiating with you, Amy, I'd be saying, what are your interests? Okay. Which interests are shared? Which interests are just different? Are there interests which are conflicted? Okay. And the challenge with negotiation is we have to listen. To persuade you persuade people with your ears. Because if I come in and say, right, and start imposing what I want onto you without understanding your position, I say, do you know what, Amy, this is going to be really good for you. It's like saying to people, with all due respect, or you're about to offend them. So how would you, if we take this forward into some of your situations, can you think of how you might apply that, Amy?
I think it's really interesting how you flip the narrative, and it's actually quite a simple tool, but incredibly effective.
Massively. It's a total reframing of the conversation.
Yeah, and it also puts the ownership on both or all of the negotiating parties and all of the stakeholders, rather than it being sort of tit for tat sort of discussion. It's like, so actually, what is best for the service right now?
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily, it's not looking about what the managers want. It's not looking about what I want. It's about looking at what the service needs. And I think that's a really interesting way of looking at it. And I guess it's the same for when we have shared decision-making with patients.
Yeah.
It's about not what I believe that you should start this blood pressure medication because that's what's best for you. Well, actually, I don't know what's best for the individual. But what I really need to think about is, what does the patient want? What's good for the patient? What are their thoughts? What are their feelings? Rather than just imparting what I think should happen, which is going to be loaded with previous experience and bias anyway. So something really simple can change the rhetoric and the conversation so quickly.
So one of the things you talked about earlier on, which was the physiological response to when you're going into a negotiation, particularly if it's really important.
Yeah.
We're negotiating every day onward, but sometimes I think this is really important to me. Should we go through a few tips? Yeah.
Yes, that would be very helpful.
So I think whether it's a difficult conversation or a negotiation, first thing is to name how you normally feel. So if I go in a conversation, I know I'm probably going to be a bit nervous. I mightn't get my words across. I might, I might react if they react. So the biggest challenge in negotiations is communication and emotions. And if we can manage the communication and emotions, we say people are really skilled negotiators and influencers, you see that's what they do and they don't rise. And it's really important to recognize that negotiators are people and face is really important. So I don't want to be humiliated or shown up, embarrassed. You know what I mean? I need to be respected. And that starts with listening. So if I make assumptions that you just want weekend off again because you don't like working weekends and prefer this, And I go into that negotiation with you about the weekend and not realizing actually you need the weekend off because it's something really important in your family. And actually, over the last 4 or 5 weeks, you've continued to neglect them. And I think, oh gosh, you just, you want to, you're off because you want to do something for yourself and you're off teaching and you're not, you know what I mean? So I think there's a bit about how we ask the question and listening to understand. I think it's really important how we sit. So if you and I were sat across the table like this, arms crossed,
Yeah.
but it actually sitting, there was a colleague, I better be careful what I say on here, somebody I worked with used to shake my hand occasionally, okay? I'll do this in the workshops, and you get your hand like this.
Mm.
Put your hand out on the screen, say, we'll commit this work, okay? So I'm going to tilt my hand that way, and you're going to tilt your hand the other way. How does that feel? I'm pushing down now.
Oh, that's weird.
Who's got the power?
You've got the power.
Yeah, flip it back now. Get it back to neutral. Now flip it the other way and take control.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Donald Trump. It's not quite the Donald Trump handshake, but there's all these. So what you've got to be really aware of is we transmit so much emotion to communication through our body language, how we sit, how we interact, how we approach people.
Yeah.
So we've got to manage that. We've got to listen, and we've got to do. If you had an interview, you've had an interview not so long ago, Jamie.
Yeah.
And Jamie, calling you Jamie. With Jamie, and you've joined his lovely team down in Lincoln. How much preparation did you do for that interview?
Oh, so much.
Tell me a bit more.
I even went to the library, the local library, because I find that when other people are working around me, it really helps me focus. So I went to the library, I did loads of research on the role, I did loads of research on the place.
You understood about them, their interest, what they needed.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
Thought about what you're going to say.
Yeah.
Measured the words carefully.
Yeah.
Done some readings in preparation.
Yeah. Had to do a presentation. Yeah.
How much preparation do people do in negotiations?
None. You go into it. Well, maybe some people do.
But most, it's like, I've got you.
Look, why are you here?
Why are you here? Can I just talk to you about this really important problem?
Yeah.
And you walk away feeling really frustrated or you didn't get what you want.
Yeah, quite. Because you haven't prepared. Yeah.
And actually, sometimes our negotiations are probably one of the most important pieces of sort of steps in our career or things we wanted to influence.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And making sure we've got the right person as well. We've got the right stakeholders who's going to have an impact. I was asked recently in the workshop about saying, this feels very manipulative. And I said, changing. I said, well, there's two sides of the same coin. Okay, manipulation is me changing your behavior actions purely for my benefit. Influence is me changing your behavior and actions for the shared benefit of the service and the direction. So actually, as doctors, whether we've got formal leadership roles, informal leadership roles, or we work with patients and service outside of the hospital, we are constantly influencing in an ethical and moral way designed by what we want to achieve for our service, our patients, our careers. And that's the flip side of manipulation. There's another really good book I want to sort of signpost for people from Harvard Business Review from Jeff Weiss, which is The Guide to Negotiation. And it's really important at the end of negotiation, you reflect on where you got. Okay. So you have to ask this question: did it satisfy everybody's co-interests? My interests, their interests, maybe third-party interests that weren't in the room in the discussion. Was it the best? Did we actually brainstorm lots of options rather than I want this, you want that? Is there another way this weekend that you can get to see one of your child at school? That means not necessarily having the weekend off, but somebody covers it. Is there a more creative way? Is it fair? Does it meet fair, legitimate standards, which actually means to real commitment? Because we can go to negotiation, be promised stuff, and you walk in, nothing happens. Or we can think that we've agreed something, and we've agreed to different things. So I've heard, yes, please go ahead and book some extra leave. And what I meant was yes, sarcastically, like yes, whatever. And then you've gone book. So the same word can mean different
Yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah.
But most importantly, is the result of good communication. We are trained in difficult communication with patients. We have the art and we have the skills. And the final thing is, does it maintain the relationship you want? Or at least not deteriorate the relationship? And many of the things I've achieved in the NHS has been on the basis of leaving a good relationships. And then when I need to negotiate, when I need to and I think it's really important to celebrate the wins. So if you do get a breakthrough, something that's really important, make sure the other stakeholder is recognized, celebrated. Because when you go to discuss it again within the team or chief executive, they go, great, I've got another idea and I think this is going to do this. And they go, okay, great, you're on my team. So that is a very rapid run through of how to negotiate and thinking about how you plan it, how you prepare. So my question is, what is the one thing you're going to take away from that, Amie?
Okay, I need to negotiate with you, Simon. Well, I need to negotiate. So I guess the first question I'm going to ask myself and what I've taken away from today is, am I in the right space? Am I personally in the right place to undertake this negotiating conversation?
Yeah.
So, and it's the same when we talked about feedback and debriefing sessions. Am I the right person in the right time and the right place to have this conversation now? Is it in the middle of the resuscitation area? Do I need the toilet? Have I just come from a really stressful weekend on call? If yes to any of those answers, it's probably not the right time to be having this conversation. So I think that's a key thing. Right, I've written so many notes, as I always do. The first question I'm going to ask is, if I want to achieve something, if I want to change, what does the service need? Why do I want this change? And why is it beneficial to the service? And completely reframe the conversation.
Or the colleague, or anybody.
Yeah, whatever it is, just reframe it. This is what is needed for a good service. This is what is needed for patient care. How do we do it with the available resources? Number 2, listen. We talked about how we come to decisions, but actually the power of listening and really listening to what people want and what people are saying. The importance of role modeling. And with that, I mean doing it in the right place at the right time, but also using the right body language, not standing when somebody's sitting, not doing it from a position of power. So not power bargaining or positional bargaining, but more equal. Sometimes you need to compromise. And that's what came out of that as well. And I think overall, the question that you also have to ask at the end, I guess it's like when you do any type of feedback or any discussion with a colleague, is what's the action plan? What's the agreement? And do you both agree with it? So rather than saying, yeah, no problem, whatever.
Yeah,
have said
so
it.
restate.
Absolutely.
Restating it.
Absolutely restate it and say, okay, so I just want to clarify then. You are saying to me that I can have this weekend off work. No, I didn't say that. Oh, okay. So I think that's really important as well. I would actually feel more confident, Simon.
Good. And I think one of the things, just as a final little nugget of wisdom is, when you've got that, go away and send an email to summarize it.
Yes, to myself.
And to them, say, listen.
To them, sorry. Not to myself.
I'm copying. But it's almost like a record. It's saying, thank you. It was great to meet you. These are the challenges. These are the next steps we've agreed. I hope you're happy. I just want to check that we've got the same understanding in the timelines, because sometimes people have memory problems and forget what they might have agreed at one point.
Yeah.
And again, if they're fair, reasonable commitments, hopefully they're things that can actually be delivered.
Yes. Yeah.
And be realistic. So I think the key thing is being open. So, Amy, thank you for allowing me to talk about one of my favourite topics, which is infant negotiation.
No, thank you, because it's something I'm terrible at. So if I'd only known that key tip 20 years ago. But
life's learning. We learn. I
every
still
day.
have to consciously think about this because we drop into old habits. So anyway, thank you for the opportunity to chat.
Thank you very much, Simon.
So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please tune in regularly. We do episodes every 2 weeks. We love talking about. If you've got ideas, things that you want us to bring for the show to talk about, send us a message. Thanks. Goodbye for now.
Bye.